This is Sponsor Spotlight. I'm Sharon Rudin, and today we're shining the spotlight on franchise and talking to Judy Davidson about the right way of going about owning your own business so you can be truly successful. Hi, Judy.
Hi, Sharon.
What is franchise?
We are the largest franchise consulting firm in the country. There's about 50 consultants like myself, and we provide a free service for people who are thinking of becoming franchise business owners.
Typically, who's coming to you? Rich people, poor people, people that have already been very successful in business?
It runs the gamut across the board. Most of our candidates do come from corporate America. They're looking at business ownership generally because they want more control. They know that they can count on themselves rather than corporate America or their retirement plan or Wall Street. I work with candidates all over the country, and a lot of them have told me that they've spent dozens of hours on the internet, and they're more confused than ever because there are about 2,000 franchise businesses out there. So we guide them throughout the entire due diligence process. We get to know them personally, professionally, and help them make the best decision. When most people think of franchising, they think of restaurant and retail. But most people aren't aware that there are about 2,000 franchise businesses out there in about 75 different industries and categories. And so when someone goes to the internet, the franchisor is only going to disclose a limited amount of information. And generally speaking, you have to fill out an online form. And most candidates that I work with have told me that they don't hear back from the franchisor at all. So we'll take it from a big macro level of, okay, why do you want to own a business first?
Right, because so many people fail. Sometimes I think, well, if it was so easy, and then everybody would have their Subway or their...
Yeah, that's a good point. Many are called, but few are chosen.
So I call you and I say, Judy, I really want to own my own business, and I think I want to own a McDonald's. Talk to me.
Okay. So we would start from there. Why do you want to own a business? Do you have a couple $1 million to invest in a McDonald's? They're pretty much sold out in the U.S., so how do you feel about living in Uzbekistan?
Oh, well. Not so great.
So, we would take, I would learn more about their motivations. Why are we talking? What's going on with you in your life, in your career? How will this business affect your family? By the end of the process, I'm going to be like part of their family. I'm going to know them from a micro level and a macro level. What are your investment comfort levels versus your income needs and goals? What are your short-term immediate must-haves for this business? What are your big picture, long-term dreams of what you'd like to accomplish? What role do you want to have? Do you want to be an owner-operator? Or do you want to be a multi-unit owner? Or do you want to own a large geographic territory and be more of an investor, have more of an investor role?
And the other thing that I want to clarify too is this is free. You talking, I call you, I say, Judy, I really want to own a franchise. Somebody told me, you got to talk to somebody who's in the know before you make any decisions. And I call you. It seems like this would take a lot of your time, a lot of research, even though you've already pre-screened companies. And this isn't going to cost me a dime?
That's correct. The only thing it's going to cost you is a referral to another great candidate just like yourself.
Wow. Okay, so let's start again. So let's go back. So I may be totally wrong. You're saying sometimes people come in and they think they know what kind of business they'd like to invest in or what kind of business they'd like to own. Mm-hmm. And you're saying a lot of times it's not the right business for them.
Well, yeah, a lot of people do have preconceived notions. Just because there's a very popular sandwich franchise on every street corner doesn't mean that that's the best fit and match for you as far as investment comfort levels versus income needs and goals and your role in the business and the hours involved, etc. So if you really do want to invest in that very popular sandwich franchise, we can look at that and also look at maybe 2 or 3 other businesses that you may have never even thought of or considered before and compare and contrast the business characteristics and see which one is the ideal fit for you.
Then when it comes to a franchise, shouldn't they all be successful? Yes, I think of mini blinds or something like that too, right?
Right.
As another type of franchise. But that's also not always true because people could pick the wrong franchise, which is why you have actually pre-screened, 2,000 different companies that have proven models of success?
Right, exactly. And that's why so much time is spent up front to make sure that it's the best fit, feel, and family on both sides. When someone starts the due diligence process, they go through a mutual interview, education, and investigation process to make sure that the franchisor is meeting all of their criteria, and from the franchisor's perspective for the candidate, that they have what it takes to succeed in their business.
Okay, so this could be a lengthy process. You're actually doing all the legwork. You're doing all the heavy lifting for me.
Well, yeah, together with my candidate, collectively, we will uncover every stone to make sure that they are making the best decision for them and their family. You know, it's second to owning a home. The American dream is to own your own business. And this is a decision that I am being allowed to help be instrumental in making sure that they're making the best decision. You know, second to getting married and having a baby, owning a business is right up there with being a very important decision that could affect them personally, professionally, financially for a minimum of 10 years, which is the average length of a franchise agreement. So I take it very seriously to make sure that it is the best fit and match.
So tell me, you've pre-screened companies. And when you say you've pre-screened companies, and I think 2,000, is that correct? Or,
well, there are a total
around?
of 2,000 franchise businesses in about 75 different industries and categories.
So give me some examples, besides the obvious one, which is the fast food.
Right. Well, we work with, I call it womb-to-tomb franchises. So businesses that have to do with children, all the way through to senior care, health and beauty and fitness and business consulting and home services, automotive, etc. You know, you name the gamut.
And you've developed relationships with these franchisors, and that's how you're able to sit down with a client and talk about their goals, their needs, goals, and financial desires.
Exactly.
In making the right fit, kind of like a matchmaker, if you will, right?
I am a franchise matchmaker, yes. So we get to know our franchise business partners very well. We get to know their business models and the best fit and match for their business.
Now, do you have to be rich to get into a franchise? McDonald's is the perfect example,
right?
Because you said a couple $1 million in Uzbekistan. I remember when I first heard about McDonald's franchise, it was a super long wait list, and you needed a minimum of, and this was years ago, like $300,000 or $400,000, which I thought was an astronomical amount of money. So what's the minimum starting amount?
I would say on average anywhere from the $50,000 investment level. That would represent generally a home-based business. And our sweet spot is anywhere between $50,000 and about $250,000, because most of the candidates that we're working with come from corporate America, and they don't have a couple $1 million to invest. And they're looking to translate their business skills into a business. And, you know, maybe they want something that is more brain-intensive, if you will, than a simple business model like restaurant.
Can you give me an example of somebody that you work with that you've matched to one of these companies?
One of my favorite stories is George and Jan Strickland. He had a 25-year history working for a very popular hamburger franchise. And then with the economy a few years ago, he got displaced. And so naturally he thought, well, of course, I'm going to buy a restaurant franchise. We started there. We looked at that, and I said, okay, we'll look at some restaurant businesses, but let's also compare and contrast some other businesses that might represent a good match as well. Typically, restaurant is your highest level of investment with your lowest rate of return and oftentimes your poorest quality of life. So let's keep that in mind. And his wife had a background. She was a nurse, so she had a background in that. And so I said, well, let's throw in a senior care franchise. Let's look at that, and we'll compare and contrast and see which one is the best fit and match. Initially, he said, senior care? No way in heck would I ever be interested in a business like that. And as we continued to gather the facts, week by week, that senior care business rose through the ranks, and it's the business that he chose. And he and his wife couldn't be any happier. They purchased a second territory right next to them, and they love the business, and they're very successful.
That's great. From a restaurant to senior care, that's quite a switch. But you're right on restaurants, I know. So it's really helping the person find the right balance, right? The quality of life as well as the financials have to be there too.
Exactly.
So you don't have to be rich. It's about being goal-driven. This is actually a viable option for a lot of people.
The ideal candidate from a franchisor's perspective would be a husband and wife team or a partnership where perhaps, one of the spouses will keep their job so they can maintain their lifestyle. We're all broke at a different level. And the other spouse is going to start the business and ramp it up. So when I start my consultation with them, the most important piece for most people is the financial piece. So I like to do an X, Y, and Z. You're comfortable in investing X, but you'd like to make Y by Z time period. Of course, it has to match your skill set and what you want to be and do in the business as well.
So somebody comes with an idea, they come and talk to you, and it might be a couple of people that maybe can pool their resources together and say, this is what we have, and I'm tired of the rat race. I'm tired of waiting to see if I get a pink slip. I was passed over for that promotion. I want to be in control of my financial future. Right. So what you kind of do, you kind of take some of that risk away because you've already pre-screened these companies. You've worked with so many people engaging what their skill level is. And so when you step in and you match somebody to a business, it's more likely that they will succeed than less likely if they were just to go on the internet, punch in a few buttons, and send in a check.
Franchising, for most of the candidates that I work with who come from corporate America, they see it as their perfect halfway middle ground of staying with their job and going off completely on their own. There's always going to be someone there that will support them from a local, regional, or national level. And the franchisor has a vested interest in their success. They're going to pour all the resources into them to make sure that they're up and running into profitability as quickly as possible, because the more money the franchisee makes, the more money the franchisor makes in the form of ongoing royalty dollars.
And that's really key, right?
Yeah, they have your back because they want to see you succeed. I'm often asked, what's the hot franchise now? But that's not an easy question to answer. The hot franchise is what's the best fit and match for them. Does it meet all of the tangible and intangible criteria that we've talked about, similar to finding the perfect person to marry?
That's a perfect analogy, isn't it?
There's a lot of criteria that go into representing the ideal business match.
So if you want to take control of your financial future, call Judy Davidson at 866-207-5679. It's 100% free. Franchise, helping ordinary people achieve their American dream. I'm Sharon Reardon, and you've been listening to Sponsor Spotlight.